All right, let's start with how to create a life vision that sticks, part 3, a guide to conscious decision making. And I want to start with a quote because I love quotes. And this one is by Friedrich Nietzsche. And he said, "The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die, as well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind." And this part is about change management. It's how do we actually cast our skin, and how do we make change happen? And I want to start with the limitations, actually, because I mean change is hard for all of us. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So I want to first of all describe what's holding us back, and most of this is really related to who we are as human beings. I mean, we come from very rough environments, and it was always about survival. It was always about I'm writing cage here, but that's not true. It's cave. I wanted to talk about how important it was to stay in the cave, not go outside because it's dangerous, and really only leave the cave and leave the tribe if you have to hunt down some animal to feed your tribe and feed the family. And leaving the tribe and doing your own thing, that was impossible, because that would mean that you're going to die. And so the comfort zone that we have, our comfort zones are still related to that, so that's why we don't leave our comfort zone. It's easy, it feels cozy to stay home, to not change anything, and for a reason, because our minds, our brains are wired that way. And that ties into pleasure versus effort, so of course it's much easier to get a dopamine kick from pleasure, to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and not work on that great idea that you have. And willpower really is not the right tool, because willpower is just it's very tiny compared to all of these habitual behaviors of yours. And as we will see later, it's also easily depletable. And then you have your monkey mind that is always trying to keep you safe. It's always very fearful. And I mean the most important function of your body and mind is to keep you alive. And the monkey mind is always on the lookout, always looking for danger. And to really put a leash on your monkey mind and use it for you, and use it in the way that you want it to work. I think that's the key, because you have created that persona of yours, and the monkey mind is just trying to protect that persona. And whenever you move out of that identity that you have created for yourself, then the monkey mind will answer with fear. And last but not least, the circadian rhythm. How is our body tied to the circadian rhythm? How much is the sun actually, and maybe also the moon, the sun and the moon, day and night, affecting your behavior, affecting your energy levels? Super interesting. And you want to change. You are on the left side. You want to get to the other side, but the other side is darkness. It's dark. It's the unknown. It's very uncertain, and humans don't like uncertainty. But you want to change, so you have to find a way to get to the other side. But as I said, there's a lot of fear leaving the cave and trying to get into the unknown. And I think first of all, it's really important that you become aware that you're actually dreaming. You're in a dream state. You live, the comfortable life. You have a job. You go there every day. You go out on the weekends. It's basically a life that is repeating itself, and if you already have the feeling that you need to change something, that you maybe you're looking for meaning, or maybe, you subconsciously know that something's not right, then you are basically already aware that you're dreaming. And I think that's a good thing. And so the part that I think is most important to get out of it is actually destruction of the dream. And what I'm describing here is the hero's journey. So I didn't make that shit up. It's basically the hero's journey that you will find in Hollywood movies. And this one, for example, I took it from another YouTube video that was talking about Neo's hero's journey in the Matrix. So first of all, you have to destroy your dream, and understand that the world you were living in is actually programmed. You have to accept that you're living in the Matrix. And once you start taking peeking behind the veil, you get into reconstruction. You look for what's true and trying to build a new reality for you. And that path inevitably goes through self-knowledge. And of course, once you are on that path, you will always go back to the other side because you're doubting yourself. And it's not a linear thing. You're always going back and forth. And that's happening all the time until at some point you get the confidence and starting to build up self-belief. And from self-belief, you actually go into the energy of love. You're not creating from fear anymore, but from love. And that is changing the trajectory of where you're headed. And so the left side is basically creating from fear and creating from what's known. It's a record of the past, and you are using the past as a predictor for the future, and that's leading you nowhere. And on the right side, you're building a map to the future and creating from love. And so I basically want to make the case, or not make the case, but explain how we are wired to act unconsciously. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you need to be aware of that, and you need to know how to use that process for you. So as I said before, we're creating from the known past. So and the knowledge from the known past is somehow passing through your conscious mind, with a little detour. But everything that is accepted by your conscious mind at some point will be stored in your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, in this case here, depicted as the body as the unconscious mind, which has 95% of your day is ruled by your subconscious mind, meaning it's very habitual behavior, and which means you 95% you are reacting and you are living as a record of the past. And as I said, this is not a bad thing. It's just your body's way of reducing complexity of reality. So it's actually a tool for you to make decisions faster, but they're not always 100% accurate, maybe 80% accurate, but it's enough for you to survive, and it's necessary to reduce the sheer complexity of reality. And as I said that earlier too, that your body, your system is basically trying to reassure your identity all the time, because it's important that within your tribe, within your family, it's important that you play a role and that you are accepted as that person, as that identity. Because if you don't play that role, if you don't have that identity anymore, it's not known if you are actually of use to the tribe anymore. So it's a dangerous thing to change your identity from one day to the other. And always very reflexive behavior. But the good thing is you have a conscious head, and the conscious head is the other 5%. And that is your willpower, that is your analytical mind, that is, you making deliberate decisions. if you're using it. If you're not using it, then, you know, these 5% are, you know, basically also, you know, very much related to what you know, what you already know, and that's still a record of the past. So what you're doing most of the time is you are looking into the future and you are trying to predict the future. So your brain is a future prediction machine, is always trying to tell you, okay, this is where we're headed and this is what we need to do. And so the easy way is to, you know, predict the future that is like the past, basically. So from what you know, from what you've experienced in the past, you are predicting the future. And so this is also known as the comfort zone. And when we look back at this, I mean, this was part of the second talk, that, you know, you have a path to your dark side, but you also have a path to the bright side, to the force, you know, like to become a good human, to become the best you. And if you don't try to go the higher path, then, you know, there is like this invisible rubber band between the path that your soul wants to go and the path that you're on. And, you know, I mean, you can go somewhere in the middle and trying to live the predictable future, but at some point the drag between the optimal path and the predictable future will become so intense that the rubber band will snap. And, you know, that is depression, that is anxiety, that is pain and suffering. So you can really decide if you want to, you know, change that trajectory from, you know, joy and with a lot of motivation, or from pain and suffering. And yeah, so I mean, of course, you could always say, yeah, today I'm gonna change everything. I wanna go the higher path, and I wanna do that right now. But changing everything that you know and changing who you are from one day to the other will create a lot of stress, because, as I said earlier, your system is trying to reassure itself of its identity. And if you then from one day to the other say like, well, I'm not that person anymore, then, you know, you can do it for a day or two or maybe a week, but I don't really think that you will last that long. I mean, there are definitely people who, you know, have the balls to do that and who are actually doing it. I'm not one of them, and I think there is a more comfortable path. So I would really recommend to try to find the sweet spot that is right outside your comfort zone, that is, you know, achievable. When you know, create that goal for you, then, you know, yeah, I can do it. I mean, it's challenging, but I can do it. And that, to me, really is the sweet spot of change. And if you look at it from the fear and love perspective, then everything below the sweet spot, or everything, you know, like in the comfort zone and below, is creating from fear. You know, creating from fear that, you know, maybe not have enough money to survive, or, you know, this and that happens, blah blah blah. And if you really try to instill change that is meaningful for you, then to me that's definitely the path of love. And so jump into the next one, the morning glory. And I want to talk about the circadian rhythm and how the circadian rhythm has an impact on your willpower. This is the left battery, the green battery. And the other one, the blue battery, is BDNF. BDNF is a protein that your brain is releasing, and that protein is responsible for neuroplasticity, which means that your brain is able to change all the time, even when you're 85, doesn't matter. And that protein makes sure that new information sticks to the brain, or like is being is that your brain is reconstructing itself. So the line on the bottom and is time, and on the left side you see the sun going up. Your batteries are full, and by midday already you have less willpower and you have less BDNF. So it's basically like your BDNF is down 1/4 already, and by 4 p.m. you only have 50% of your batteries, and in the evening, they're almost done. So there are ways to boost your BDNF actually, and those are really simple things like coffee or green tea, exercise, especially high intensity training, intermittent fasting, sunlight, but also meditation, because stress is killing BDNF, and deep sleep. So yeah, I want to go from limitations to tools actually, and talk a little bit about how to use the process of your subconscious mind, that you are doing things habitually, how you can use that process for you and use it as an autopilot mode, and talk a little bit about deep learning, how important it is that focus on something and try to use the process of your brain for learning, to instill change and to create habits that work for you. So yeah, it's basically using the carrot on a stick to let the monkey mind run for you, and talking a little bit about how an anti-vision can work for you, and how automating change will help you to create a constant dopamine flow. Yeah, that ship, from the first talk, and of course, actions, words, and thoughts as your tools of consciousness, and of course change, and your emotions. And in that case, your vision is pushing you forward towards love, but there is always the flip side of the coin, and you can also use your anti-vision to create the emotion of fear. So both of the things can work for you, but you need to. Not you need to, but I think it's important to use both of them, to know where you want to go and to know where you absolutely don't want to go. So yeah, this is talking a little bit about the stuff that we talked about in the earlier conversations. So you basically have your vision persona, and this can be quite overwhelming, right? That you have this persona, this person that you want to be in the future, and you actually don't know how to get there. It's this super huge goal, and you don't know how to reach it. So of course, the easiest thing is to break it down in milestones, smaller goals, but also really tiny goals, really small and achievable goals. And you see the third tiny goal is this talk. So these talks are for me tiny goals that I'm setting for myself to walk the path towards my vision persona. And I actually don't really have a plan a plan of how to get there. I don't know how to be that person, but I use tiny goals and goals in order to get onto that path. And okay, so let's say this is your weekly goal, maybe. So in my case, this is a talk. This is a talk that I have to prepare. Then okay, I have like 7 days to prepare. And one thing that I can only recommend, and you can see this in a lot of talks online about habits and habit building. And there's a really great book called Atomic Habits that is talking about this. You will find much more details in this book, but I think what's most important is a deadline. So in my case, I'm creating a deadline for my talk. I will tell people, hey, it's next Friday at 6 p.m. and accountability, so other people know that I want to give that talk, and they will ask me like, hey, what about the talk? Like, do you want to give it or not? And another thing that's super important for goals is that it's self-rewarding, or that you reward yourself for reaching that goal. So once you reach that goal, it really doesn't matter how people like it, or you don't need praise from other people. The most important thing is that you reward yourself and you tell yourself like, okay, I reached that goal, and that goal is another brick, another small part of a foundation for reaching my future persona or my vision persona. And yeah, so then we have tiny goals. This is in this case, this is 1 day. So this is the work that I want to do in 1 day. And it's important that you make the goal of change or whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe it's just learning a language. You should make it a cornerstone habit. And of course, a cornerstone habit, I mean, it's hard to create habits, but what you can do is to use a cornerstone habit that you already have. For example, drinking coffee. I love coffee. I drink coffee in the morning. And if you then stack your habits, so you say, okay, in the morning I want to drink a coffee, and then I start working on my goal. So you try to have like an emotional cue, so your brain learns, okay, whenever I drink coffee, I will work on that goal. But you can do more. So you know that the brain is releasing the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein that makes things stick, when you drink coffee. But it also releases BDNF when you exercise. In this case, I'm going running, for example. And meditation. When I wake up in the morning, I will meditate for 20 minutes. Then I go running, and then I have a coffee, and then I work. So I, try to make sure that my body is releasing BDNF, and then I can work on something, and then it will definitely stick better. Plus, in the morning, I have more BDNF, so that's why I always do these things in the morning. That's very important to me. I know that when I do stuff in the evening, like giving this talk in the evening, it's not a good idea. I always want to do these things in the morning because I know I have more energy and I have more BDNF. And, you can also tie the whole thing into intermittent fasting, for example, because intermittent fasting will release even more BDNF. And so you have, you can stack this together. So you say, okay, I do intermittent fasting until, 12. And in the morning I wake up, I do meditation. Right after meditation, I go running. Then I come back, take a shower, get a coffee, and start working. And working on your goals, I think like Andrew Huberman is talking about this. He always uses like 90-minute bouts. So he's working deliberately on something for 90 minutes because he says that this is the perfect size for a bout, for like a block of work. And one thing that he says is super important, and I will link the talk in the description so you can look into the details, is deep rest. So every time you focus on something and you learn something new, make sure that your brain is switching from the focus mode to the deep rest mode, because in the deep rest mode, you will get the reconfiguration of your brain. So the goal, the focus work, the deep learning is your trigger for change. And the deep rest will then make sure that this change is actually being reconfigured in your brain. And yeah, one thing that I think is interesting to watch is that your mind will actually create for you. So if you don't know how to reach a certain goal, just set a deadline, and of course it needs to be meaningful. It needs to point towards your vision persona and be nested in that persona, so you have an overarching goal or an overarching vision. That's self-evident, but once you set that goal and you have a deadline, you have a date and time, you have people asking for it, then it will create a drag. It will create a drag between here and the future. And this is what I talked about in the second talk, the duration path outcome, that your brain is always, trying to calculate what's going to happen from between here and that goal. How long does it take? What's the path towards it? And what's the outcome? And you will see, we all know this, you have to work on something and you're under the shower, your brain is not focused on anything. And all of a sudden you have these crazy ideas and you're like, oh shit, I need to write this down. Or when you take a walk, for example, same thing. These things happen. But I mean, they won't happen if you don't set the goal, if you don't set the deadline, and if you don't have the accountability. This is the strongest thing. When I did this, I go for a run, and sometimes I have to stop like 5 times and note something in my phone, because my mind is just overflowing with creativity. And I think the same is true for other people. I'm not special in that sense. So. And as always, there's always a dark side. So if you don't do these things, if you just wake up in the morning without a structure, without a morning routine, then the first thing that's happening, at least to me, is rumination. I start to think about problems. I start to think about I have to do this and that, and this is really detrimental to your brain health, because the things you think about in the morning are more likely to stick because you have more BDNF. So if your habit is to ruminate about the day or the week ahead, then your brain will learn to do that automatically. So I think it's very counterproductive, and you really need to make sure that you are using this process for you and put a leash on your monkey mind. And of course, if instead of running, you could just practice sitting. It's like you do it all day anyways, and I would not recommend that. And instead of intermittent fasting or working on your goal, you could also go to social media. It's very tempting, I know, but I would not recommend doing that. And so I really think that we can all change, and we can use willpower, but it won't last. I think it's really important to understand how the processes in your body work, and how your brain works, and how habituation works, in order to make it work for you. And to understand that you can use your body and your brain in a very reflexive way. It will work in a very automated way, or you can use it in a deliberate way. You can breathe automatically, and you can breathe deliberately, and you can also think automatically. Your brain will always come up with crazy thoughts and ideas, but you can also use it deliberately, and I would recommend that. You see the picture of me saying I want to change, and I mean, it's great that you already think that you want to change. I think the next step really is saying it out loud. Words, as I said earlier, thoughts, words, and actions, the tools of consciousness. But I think it's more powerful to actually say, I am changing, because your brain doesn't know the difference. For your brain is always now. Your brain doesn't know the future. It's always, trying to predict the future, but it doesn't know. So I think it's really important to watch the way you talk about who you are and who you want to become. And of course, then also get into the action of doing it. And you need to slay the dragon. You need to. Jordan B. Peterson talks about it all the time, but I think it's important to really confront your own anxieties and be aware that anxiety is actually a good thing. It's pointing you towards something. It's pointing you towards change. And only if you get into uncomfortable situations, you will grow. I mean, to me, I was suffering from crazy anxiety, and talking publicly was one thing I really didn't like, but I wanted to become a public speaker. And so I started doing these talks, and that's what I'm doing right now. It was super uncomfortable in the beginning, and I mean, it still is sometimes, but for me, it's the only way to go. And so I would really recommend to create a process for you that works, and try to attach that process to already existing habits to make it easier to get into it. And also be aware of, do you really want to change through pain or through joy? In my case, I didn't change for so long that I had to walk through a lot of pain to make deliberate changes. But if you are in the lucky position to be okay with who you are, and you are you don't suffer from depression or anxiety, then but you think that you could change something, that you could create more meaning in your life, and you want to try new things, then do it. I mean, I think it's the the greatest thing to do to change your own life. And instill free will into the program, which means use your subconscious mind in a deliberate way. Try to feed it good things and try to use the conscious part of your mind in order to make it a program. And I think whenever you think about how to create the future, then Elon Musk is talking about this all the time. He's always talking about first principles, and the opposite of first principle thinking is thinking in analogies. And thinking in analogies is basically like, it has always worked like this, it will work like that in the future. But the past is always a really bad predictor for the future. The future will be similar to the past, but also very different. So, it's a trend, and you can use it, but I think it's more important to use first principle thinking and to look to the bottom of yourself and like what's true for you, and use that truth to create from the bottom up, and not from what other people are thinking or what happened in the past or what the news are saying or blah blah blah. I think it's really important that you create from what's true for you. And I really wanna close that talk with another quote. And you know the saying, mind over matter. But Max Planck, for those who don't know Max Planck, he was a theoretical physicist who laid the foundation for what we know as quantum mechanics. And it's really interesting what he said. He said that all matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. So he basically is making the case that, at least as far as I understand it, that on a subatomic level, matter and mind are indistinguishable. And I will just leave it at that and let you think about it. But I think it has great implications for what your mind is capable of doing. Thank you for watching.